Hello and welcome to the Petticoated Swashbuckler. My name is Maren and today we are making underwear. So we are we're getting somewhere with this lady, with this Anne Boleyn. I might trim the neckline a little bit. We'll see what we have time for. I also haven't gotten around to making my first sleeves yet. So we'll definitely try and get that done. I mean, by the time you see this, I will know whether I had time to do it all or not. But this is filmed in advance, so I'm still living in, excitement, and yeah, I'm not quite sure. Maybe we'll see. But I have made my kirtle, I have made my gown, I have made the 4 sleeves and the 4 parts, and some decorations to the kirtle. I have made the French hood, and I have made the farthingale that's underneath this, and it's now time to think of underwear. Now, usually I would start with that. I'd start with the innermost layer and work my way out, but in this case I had something that could work if I ran out of time, and also I really needed to have at least the kirtle in place, because see this, I mean, this is a little bit skewed now because I've just kind of thrown it onto my dress form, but the neckline of my gown is made to be exactly a little bit smaller than the neckline of my kirtle. The neckline of my chemise has to be a little bit larger than the neckline of my kirtle. They have to line up, and I couldn't do that until I had at least the kirtle. So I haven't prioritized it until now, but now I'm going to make like the underdress. I've seen it called a shift or a smock or even a chemise, and it really is very simple, and it does not change for 1,000 years at the very least. Like, you find these kind of linen, very simple, made up of squares and rectangles and a couple of triangles. You find them throughout history, from like the Roman and kind of like early medieval period up through to, I've used that pattern as a blouse for like early 20th century patterns. So it's super versatile. And I made a tutorial, that's many years ago now. I'll link it up here somewhere, on how I made my 18th century chemise or smock or shift. And you can really use that same method. I'm going to use a method that's very similar to make her underdress. There's really 3 kind of undergarments that forms that kind of innermost layer. And I know I talked about this in my video back in January. But the medical understanding of the period was that you could catch disease through the pores of your skin. And so keeping those kind of fresh and clean and clear and open was really important. Not too open, not open and like moist so that you would suck in dangerous stuff. You wanted to wear something that would kind of wick away sweat and moisture and dead skin cells and all of that. They didn't know it was dead skin cells, but they knew that if you just left it in your clothes, it would stink, right? So they would have this innermost layer. And in the period, there's really only 3 fabrics that you have to work with. It's either silk or wool or linen. Now, wool is a magical fabric. I love working with wool. I love wearing wool. But you do not necessarily want to wear wool next to your skin, because wool is not so easy to launder. And whatever you wear next to your skin, it will get oils from your skin, it will get dead skin cells, it will get sweat. And if that's left in clothing, it will start to smell, they will develop bacteria and they will smell. If you do have woolen clothing that you have worn next to the skin and that smells a little bit funky, there are things you can do. You can put it in your freezer. That will kill some of the bacteria that produce the bad smell. When I was a kid, we used to, on a cold snowy day, hi Norway, on a cold snowy day, we'd take like all the rugs from our floors out into the snow and like trample them and leave them out there, and it would kind of both give them a quick kind of rinse as the snow melted into the carpet fibers, but it would also, leaving them out in the cold would also kill some of the bacteria. You can also leave just your woolen clothing hanging out on a sunny, cold day, like, because UV light will kill bacteria and you will also give it good airing. So there are some things you can do. You don't necessarily want to wear wool for underwear. Now, silk is even worse because for one thing, it's even more expensive. And it does not, whereas wool is fine to wear even when it's really warm because it lets the air pass through, it insulates, but it also insulates like against the heat. So if it's really warm, you'll be fairly comfortable in wool compared to like some sort of synthetic polyfiber. Silk does not let air pass through in the same way, so you'll be much warmer wearing silk on a hot summer day than you would be wearing wool. And the silk is also a much finer fabric. It can take a lot less, and that's also one important reason why linen kind of won through as the underwear fabric of choice for hundreds, if not thousands of years, because you need to wash your you need to launder your underwear. People in the period didn't necessarily wash with water. Water was often contaminated, and they had this fear of becoming ill by something passing through water into the pores of the skin. So what they did instead was they would rub with dry linen rags and wear linen underwear, and then they would wash the rags and the underwear and keep clean that way. I recommend checking out How to Be a Tudor, A Dawn to Dusk Guide to Life in Early Modern Britain, and How to Behave Badly in Renaissance Britain. Both of them are by Ruth Goodman. She has tried this kind of washing without water method, and she writes magnificently. She'll give you a better explanation on how it works and like the effects of this kind of or kind of washing without water. However, the main point is linen becomes super, super important because it can it absorbs so well. And the more you use it, the better it becomes of absorbing. It absorbs the moisture from your body, it absorbs the dead skin cells, it absorbs, all the sweat on your body, and then you launder it and it's gone, and you can put on a fresh piece of underwear and you will be fairly clean. And linen can actually take the laundering, and that's another really important reason why linen won. Not just its own, the way it handles kind of bodily moisture and stuff, but also the fact that linen is a tough fabric. It can really take a beating. And it had to, because that was literally the way the Tudors washed their clothes, by beating it with massive paddles that look a bit like cricket bats that you would just smash, the Jesus out of your laundry with, or you would rub it against really kind of hard and knobbly surfaces to force, because what you do is you pour lye on it, and that will dissolve grease, and then you force, and force is the operative word, water through the fibres of your linen, and that way you dislodge dirt. So they really had to be able to withstand a proper beating. Wool, if you do that to wool, you would end up with like a mess of like felted, matted, like just a lump of unusable felt. If you do that to silk, it would probably like disintegrate fairly quickly. Whereas linen not only takes it, but becomes better by it. Like it is. Oh, I love natural fibres, and especially wool and linen. Oh, but because you basically beat your laundry to a pulp, you can't have anything like hooks and eyes or buttons or anything like that on it, because it would rip holes in the fabric, and if you had like a tiny little button, it would probably break. It would probably just be crushed by your laundry process. So everything's tied with like little strings, and I have bought a book. I bought it from the Tudor tailors, because they are my new gurus in life. And it is called Take 5 Bows Departed. And I will, if I have time, as a part of the process of creating an underdress for this ensemble, I will try my hand at like finger loop braiding. As for the smock itself, I will have a square neckline. I will have very, very simple sleeves. I think I'll just have like very simple narrow sleeves ending right here. I was debating making like embroidered little ruffles. You don't have the big ruffles yet. That's much later. That's from the mid 1560s onwards. But like little kind of flounciness. However, I think if I have time to do that, I will probably just make them as separate flounces and just like attach them to the 4 sleeves, because this ensemble is already so much like fake and fobbery, and I love it. It's brilliant and it's very period accurate. Why spend time and money on something no one's going to see? So that's my plan. That's the main kind of cover for your body, is the smock. However, when you have put a smock on, there are still a couple of bits that are kind of open to infection and stuff. Your face and your neck. You can cover your neck. I won't be making that for now, but it was quite common to make what's called a partlet, which is basically, it looks like you've taken a shirt and you like cut it off here. So you only get like the collar bit and the bit in front and back. And you could find them quite thin linen versions. You can find big chunky lined woolen versions that go on top of dresses. So that's an option to cover like your neck area. Your legs are open. So I will try and make some hose. I do have some stockings that I can use if I don't have time, but I would love to make some linen hose because I don't have any and I think they're lovely. And finally, you need something on your head, like something on your hair, because your hair would also contain oils. I've spent a lot of time making this beautiful silken thing up here. I don't want it stained by my hair oils. I have already made my little cap. However, when we made the hood, I realized that if I'm wearing only the hood, like this is my new favorite thing in the world, I have to say. I love my French hood. If I'm just wearing my French hood, like even now with my hair kind of plaited down instead of bound up, it sits really well. Like it's not going anywhere and it's so nice. The moment I put this one under, the hood kind of slides off, which is not ideal. So I might actually not wear that with this ensemble. But I have it, that's the point. I've made it, I'm trying, I can use it for other things. It's not a waste of time, it's just, yeah, you know, we can't always, not everything doesn't go to plan always. So that's my plans. A chemise and some hose. It's just basically just a fancy word for knee-length stockings. Want to come along? So to make a chemise, you very simply need 2 rectangles, one for your front of your body, one for the back. And these need to be as long as you want your shift to be long, and your top width divided by 2. So whether you choose your chest width or your waist, that's up to you depending on where you're the widest. You also need 2 rectangles for the sleeves. They need to be as long as the sleeves and as wide as the top of your arm. I'm going to have to piece mine together, so I'm just going to mark out the kind of mid section there. You then need 2 triangular gauze. I'm going to make mine 60 centimeters long. They should be at least 50 centimeters wide at the bottom, which makes it much easier to walk in your shift. And finally, you need 2 little squares for the underarm gauze. I'm usually making mine 10 centimeter square. If you find them fiddly to stitch in, you can also divide them into 2 triangles instead of 1 square. Now for all my square and rectangular pieces, I like to draw threads with linen. It's really what it says on the tin. You find a thread and you pull it, and it makes a straight line. The thread will break, so have a little pin ready to pick up the thread again and keep pulling. And as you can see, it's really easy to see where that thread's been pulled, where I'm cutting now. And that makes it so much easier to get perfectly straight pieces. Now, of course, not all pieces are supposed to be straight. I need the 2 triangular gauze and they have to be cut on the bias, on the diagonal. So I'm just marking out my pieces here. And drawing that line from corner to corner. And cutting where I've been drawing. The first thing I do is I attach the sleeves to the shoulders. Here it's really important not to stitch the shoulder seam all the way, just a little bit, because you need to make room for that big neckline. I'm also stitching in my underarm gauze. I went into more detail about how to do that on my very versatile chemise video, but very, very simply, quickly explained. It's basically one little square under each arm, one side of it into one corner, one kind of underarm corner, and then the other side goes into the other corner. Can you see how they kind of fit? If you find this fiddly, you can cut them in half diagonally so that you get one triangle for each underarm, and then you stitch those 2 triangles together in the end. This is my side gauze, and they've cut so that they have one side that's straight on grain and one side that's on the bias. And the side that's on the bias will kind of pull and drag and get out of shape after a while. So it's really important not to stitch the 2 bias sides together. You have to stitch that to a straight grain side to avoid sag. And my seams are flat felled, and that's both because it's more comfortable on the skin. This is underwear after all. I'm just stitching with a running back stitch and then folding seam allowance over and stitching that down with a whip stitch. And it also makes for really sturdy seams because you basically stitch that thing twice. So as you can see, even though this is fairly thin linen, the seam is very sturdy. It can take some pulling. Now it's time to try it all on. And that's because we now need to fit a couple of things and make sure they look good underneath our kirtle. So the first thing I do is to look at my sleeves. As you can see, the sleeves are too wide at the cuff. So I'm just going to mark where I want my sleeves to be. I'm just marking that with a pin, and then I'm going and marking where the sleeve kind of starts to fit, which is usually around elbow point. Then I'm looking at my hem. It needs kind of trimming up a little bit, but I'm very happy with the length of this. I'm not going to do anything with that. Then comes the time to put on the kirtle. And we're doing that because we need to make sure the neckline of the shift will match the neckline of the kirtle. And of course the neckline of the gown is also fit to match the kirtle. So just give me a moment here while I get myself laced in. And there we go. So all laced up and ready to go. And you can already see that if I were to wear this with a very high neckline, the shift would be very obvious. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but not for this look, not for the Anne Boleyn look. After straightening out that shift a little bit, I'm just gonna go in with a pen and mark out where the neckline of the kirtle sits. Now, if you sew on your own, and most of us do, you can do these kind of things on yourself. It's a little fiddly and it looks silly, but I'm going to show you how you mark the back on your own. If you have the range of motion to kind of scratch your own back almost between the shoulder blades, you can do this. I'm just gonna move my hand back. I'm gonna feel for that V shape in the back, and I'm gonna just draw it out with the pen. I'm working blind here, so it looks really silly. Use something that if you get it on your kirtle, you can get it off again. And you don't have to mark all the way up. You can kind of, the ends of the V can meet the ends of the shoulders that you drew on the front, up at top of your shoulders. Now with all that done and back flat, I'm just gonna find my markings on my sleeves. I'm gonna give myself some seam allowance and mark it out. And then we're just gonna stitch where we marked. For the neckline, we do much of the same. It's not looking very good. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's not looking very good. It's kind of wobbly. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we've marked the same distance from the middle towards the left as towards the right. And then we also need to find the center front. And when we've done that, we can true up the side of the neckline that you feel is the best, looks the best and fits the best. For me, it's the side with the less wrinkles when I marked. And I'm just gonna mark that out, and then we're gonna cut that out. And then what we cut out will be our pattern for what we need to cut out on the other side. Finally, I'm just going to go over with an iron and even out this because it's horribly wrinkly, and this also removes the markings because this pen is removed with heat or friction. And finally, the hems, I'm not going to mark that, I'm just going to do that by eye. I'm starting off at the corner where you have too much fabric, and I'm just going to gently curve that up towards the center. Some more stitching and we are getting close to done. I've stitched down the sleeve seams and I've hemmed the sleeves. I have also hemmed the hem. I have finished the shoulder seams and I have hemmed the neckline, and all of these hems are really simple, narrow, turn over twice, stitch down with a whip stitch sort of thing. Now for my hosen, I'm using a pattern that I've used before that I know fit me. I have a piece for the leg and a piece for the foot, and the leg piece has to be cut on the bias, otherwise it will never fit. So
I'm just folding the fabric on the bias. Marking out around my pattern. And cutting it out. And with 2 foot pieces and 2 leg pieces, you need to join them, and that's a bit fiddly. So first of all, you need to cut a sort of V shape on your leg piece and fit the line in the foot piece to that V shape. This is fiddly, but it makes for a nice fit. I'm then gonna form the foot. Can you see how these rounded shapes will form around my toes? And finally there's a seam underneath the foot and then all the way up the back of my legs, the back of my calves. Here's me stitching that join, that V-shaped join. Like I said, this is fiddly, but take your time. I might do a kind of more in-depth tutorial on this at some other point if that's interesting to people. With my Hosen done, my shift done, and my little cap done, it was time to put it all on and show you my underwear. Arrgh.